Hey, welcome back to another thrilling episode of Back to the Podcast. We're your host, Justin Neal, and I am Chris Lawler. And our mission is to create an entertaining, cinema-centric discussion about the past, present, and future of all things revolving around entertainment. Please don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe on wherever you consume your content. On today's show, we are going to talk about summer blockbusters that made our summers better and the Cannes Film Festival. Justin, welcome back, man. It's another great Sunday. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about movies.
Oh, yeah, me too. I am always ready to talk about movies, if you can't tell. So do you want to just dive right in? Or let's
what's the news, man? Cannes Film Festival, Cannes, South of France.
What were you watching this week before we talk about
this week.
We're watching?
So I mentioned one of the things I saw, Affleck's directorial Air on Amazon with Matt Damon.
Chris Tucker and Viola Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I'm gonna let you go first since you
brought
this one up.
Yeah, but when I mentioned it before the show, you got really excited. So I'm curious to see what your thoughts are.
I didn't like it. I mean, don't get me wrong, like it movied, but it was just like a paint by numbers. It was like, hey, we want to make money off of this guy's talent by making a shoe. Hey, we got the meeting. Hey, it went well. We made millions of dollars. There were no stakes. Like the big stake was like, you might not have a job tomorrow. And it's like, yeah, that happens. Like there was, I don't know, man, that's about it. And it just felt like it was overpacked with star power for a movie that needed none of it.
Yeah, it was actually really raw. One of the things that I talked to my wife about, we watched it. I thought it was really, it felt a bit like a student film. Like they just kind of some people got together and they put the camera up and they just kind of moved the camera back and forth and let people just talk at each other. And that's what the movie was. I was really surprised that Robert Richardson was the cinematographer on it. I know him originally more from like Oliver Stone, doing Oliver Stone movies, Martin Scorsese movies, and now he's been working with Quentin Tarantino. So I guess he was like taking a break or something. He was like, yeah, I'll go shoot this little, indie movie. I mean, it was practically like made for TV, but it was really like unpolished and kind of thrown together. We were just kind of unimpressed.
Okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one, but it was fine. Like
it was fine.
It was perfect. I didn't sit down to watch it. I threw it on in the background while I was making some food or something and doing some other stuff. And I was like, I'm not missing anything. Like, it's literally like all we want to do is get Michael Jordan to wear this shoe. And then they like make the shoe in an afternoon on a Saturday. And it's like, wow, there's like not really much profound stuff happening. And the one thing that I thought they were going to showcase in the movie was the day they took the photograph with him doing the Air Jordan thing. Like, I thought that was going to be a part of it because that was like a huge moment as well for them, is that they captured this one little moment in time. And now it's, stitched across everything. They only mentioned in the end credits. And I was like, okay, well, it movied.
Yeah, and it's funny that location-wise, it takes place in Beaverton, Oregon, which is just across it's on the other side of the city from me. And Nike and everything. Yeah, so all those wide shots, the drone shots of Mount Hood in the distance, like, yeah, it's right over there, sort of thing. Yeah, I can see Hood. I don't know, that was interesting, but just overall, it was definitely like, what are we doing? And okay, so I think part of it, you were saying that it's not really about anything. There are no stakes. They're about like maybe some jobs are being lost potentially, but that isn't really driving anything. And that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is nostalgia. That's why it starts with like a montage of shit from the 80s, because it's like the South Park episode with the member berries, like, oh, I remember. And you're just immediately supposed to get like a fuzzy feeling of like, oh yeah, my childhood and all these. I remember those shoes. Those were awesome. And then the rest of the movie is just playing on that feeling of nostalgia. It's not playing on stakes or conflict, really, other than maybe some internal conflict, business conflict, whatever, but that's not what it's about. It's about nostalgia. That is a movie about nostalgia, or a movie that's a movie that is leaning on the backs of nostalgia to carry it, across the finish line. And that's why your issue is like the nostalgia wasn't enough and the rest of the movie wasn't
Yeah.
developed enough to carry it without the nostalgia. So if
Yeah.
the nostalgia doesn't work for you, then the movie doesn't work. And so if the nostalgia does, then you're still going to walk away. An audience member is going to walk away thinking like, yeah, those shoes were sweet, right? That was funny. And then that's it.
Yeah, it was pretty, like I said, that's why I call it a paint by numbers movie. It's like, yeah, it's a story I knew. Maybe a few people didn't know it, and maybe that's why it was so underwhelming. But it's like,
So, well, they didn't spend a lot of time coloring it either, if you're going to use that metaphor. It's like not only was it paint by numbers, but it's not that they went outside of the lines. They just didn't fill in the blocks completely. So they're like, patchy. It's patchy. It's a patchy paint by numbers. So there are like spaces missing. You know what I mean? Sections where got more attention than others or none at all. So we were just kind of underwhelmed, but it's really being marketed as like an unbelievably entertaining movie. Like it's the most entertaining movie of the year. And so we watched and we're like, I mean,
it was fine. It was like,
whatever.
It was fine. I don't really have any major complaints other than the fact that it was like none of the actors that were cast in the roles they were cast in were there because they were cast for a certain purpose. Like anyone could have filled in anyone's shoes. And I love all those actors. I mean, even Jason Bateman felt a little underwhelming especially with the performance he's been doing for the last few years on Ozark. And then, of course, all the comedy chops he's got before that. This just felt like, yeah, I'm just playing a guy that worked in an office.
Yeah, they are, because they are just guys who works in offices. Right. Oh, no. I'm not saying that it's a good or bad thing. It's like, well, that's what they're playing. That's so either that play, so it plays for, either, the schlub either plays for you or it does.
So that's crazy that we actually ended up watching the same thing. That's the first time that's happened that we watched the same thing. I did go back and watch some older fun stuff, though. And I gotta be honest, man, 300. I went back and rewatched that recently. Oh God, Zack Snyder. And that movie just does it for me. Do you hate that movie?
I don't. No, I do not hate that movie. I'm amused by that. Let me rephrase that. I'm amused by the response that movie generated at the time, and still does. Like I'm amused because actually Watchmen is probably my favorite of Zack Snyder's movie.
I like that too, but then they made the director's cut, and the director's cut I can't.
Yeah, I didn't need that. It's too much. No, I think the theatrical cut is perfectly good for what they were trying to do with that story. But 300 is fine. Like it's really cool. It was actually, I remember seeing it and like that was cool. There were some neat techniques. It was definitely its own, it was being adapted from a graphic novel. It totally plays in that sort of way. It came out at the same time that Robert Rodriguez did Sin City, stuff like that. Like I can dig that as a style, like, right on, but it really became like
a thing.
And that's what I was amused by. Like, really?
But here's where I'm at though. In that movie, now the number of times I've seen it, Gerard Butler is actually giving an amazing performance in that film. Like, that's the thing that I walk away from every time I see it is like, this dude should have been at least nominated for an Academy Award for his devotion and performance to this character. I believe every word that's coming out of his mouth. I believe that he believes every word that's coming out of his mouth. You know what I mean? And then Lena Headey as well, I think, is bringing some great chops, full force acting. And once again, should have totally been nominated. And I know that's so random of a thing that we're talking about because this is what, an 18-year-old movie or something like that at this point.
What year did it come out? Like,
I can't even remember. I definitely know that was long before I met the wife. So
off the top of my head, I'm saying 04 is what I would say off the top of my head.
It got to be something like that because
which would be 18 years ago.
Yeah, so they're right there. Yeah, I think I'm hitting it. So I know that's random to bring it up and stuff, and I know it's not like the greatest piece of cinema, but for some reason, that movie just hits. It hits all the right moments. It's fun, it's thrilling, and like the acting is so good for what it is. It's just style. It is a lot of style over substance, but the little bit that's in there is nice. It's meaty,
Right on. Yeah, no, yeah. I've seen it several times. Like I'm not a type of person that would be like, oh fuck this movie and turn it off. Yeah. I think it's visually interesting. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff about it. Like I said, Watchmen's my favorite of his. I remember when I was in production school at the Art Institute, is when Sucker Punch came out. And I remember seeing a buddy of mine, we went and saw Sucker Punch in the theater, and we were like by halfway through it, like I was giggling, like I was just cracking up because it was so ridiculous and so
Yeah.
like he leaned so far into this idea
Yeah.
that it was like comical.
Yeah.
To me, like I was amused that someone like it was unrestrained, like
Yeah.
it was completely untethered.
I've only seen that movie the one time.
Me
but
too.
I remember going, wow, this movie could have been like 20 minutes long if it
Like,
just wasn't all in slow motion.
This movie is completely untethered, completely untethered. No one,
100%. And
no one.
the trailers
This is
made it look so cool too. And once again, we were all hyped.
well,
off
and
of 300.
visually. Well, I mean, if you're into like the fetish, you know what I mean. It's a very fetish heavy sort of idea, like.
Yeah.
In whatever flavor is, you know what I mean? Because there's tons of, it's every flavor. That's the thing about like the whole movie is like kind of designed to be, you know, like titillating to niche,
but there's just not enough
fetishes and stuff. But that's all it is. But yeah, like we were just cracking up in the theater because I was like, who is letting him do this? Like,
he's unchained.
He is unleashed.
Well, with that, man, we should definitely hop over to the news. I know that you've been pretty hopped up on the 76th Annual Cannes Film Festival that's going on right now in France. Of course, you know, it's going on all the way through the 27th, so we've got some time. But some of the most popular movies that are expected to be screened at Cannes this year, the first one that I'm going to mention is one I think that you and I are both already hyped for. I only just finally saw the trailer this morning, but Killers of the Flower Moon. It's a Western directed by Martin Scorsese, based on the true story of the Osage murders, a series of murders that took place in Oklahoma in the 1920s. And the film stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and it says Jesse Plemons, but I know that there's a bigger cast associated with this.
Because it's Scorsese, so the cast is enormous.
I'm really excited.
I did just yesterday though, or no, 2 days ago on Friday. So I saw it on Friday. My wife had actually seen the trailer before I did, but you know, any new Scorsese movie can be, you know, an event. Bring it back with Leo. I'm super excited to see that. That's probably the most exciting. Like this summer, that's what I'm most looking forward to. That or. Speaking of at Cannes or Cannes or whatever you want to call it, the south of France is where it's at. Is Wes Anderson's new movie Asteroid City. Do you want to see that? Because I do like Wes Anderson. It looks very Wes Anderson. Yeah,
I'm not a huge Wes Anderson guy, but I know that that's one of the big ones that's going to be featured there as well, and whatnot. So there's a lot of great stuff. But yeah, I saw the trailer to it, and it's like, yeah, that's what Wes Anderson movies look like. With that color palette and the quirkiness and the shots that he layers and stuff. And there's a beautiful charm to it all, but I've definitely never been drawn into his movies.
Yeah, I gotcha. I've been a fan of his since Rushmore, and so I do like Wes Anderson movies. They're very much of, you know, it's a niche thing and you know what you're getting into sort of thing, but I kind of, you know, I enjoy it. So
I need to probably sit down and give him more attention. Once again, like his movie started hitting when I was pretty young, right? I mean, we're the same age, so like they're a little artsy and a little bit over most people's heads, and I think they just went right over mine for some reason. But there's no reason now, years later, I couldn't go back and try to like see if I can pick up on the quirks and enjoy them the way other people do. And maybe I was just in the wrong. Once again, we've talked about movie mindset. Like maybe I was just in the wrong place to sit down and watch a Wes Anderson movie, you know?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You probably have to be in the right place to watch Requiem for a Dream, you know? That's not like a movie you just throw down casually when you're in a good mood, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I remember when like the Royal Tenenbaums came out, that was probably the first of Wes Anderson's that was kind of a wider release. Because Rushmore was still super indie, like no one saw Bottle Rocket. Then Rushmore was super indie.
Years later,
I saw Rushmore, like on rental. I didn't see it in the theater, but Royal Tenenbaums. It was kind of like Rushmore was like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and then Snatch and Royal Tenenbaums, where it was kind of the same thing but bigger release.
And I remember Royal Tenenbaums was definitely the first one that had way more advertising budget behind it.
And Big Cat, that was when Bill Murray was in Rushmore, but like it expanded, like his trove of actors and
Yeah.
actresses, expanded his thespians.
What's the one with the where they're like on a ship and stuff like that?
The Life Aquatic. So
Yes, everybody
that's
loves that
really
one
kind of
too.
that's when he was just allowed. That's him untethered. That's
Okay.
Wes Anderson. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's one of those like he was just allowed to go make whatever he wanted to make, and that's what he made. It grew on me over time. At first, I just thought it was just completely terribly indulgent. But that can have a charm of its own, and I think I just have entered the phase where I'm like, nah, but I like it. I like the Life Aquatic. But anyway, Royal Tenenbaums was the movie that came out to where either you saw Royal Tenenbaums in the theater and was like, okay, I like what this guy's doing. He's quirky, he's odd, he's got his own thing, but I'm going to follow this guy's career. And then other people who were like, what is this? And just, it was just kind of discarded or ignored or whatever, that sort of thing. And so each new release just wasn't something that you looked forward to. So I think that was the difference. That was the fork probably around your time, like our time for you, is that you didn't get on board when Royal Tenenbaums came out. And so
No,
you know what I mean? Like you missed the train. So.
I did see Royal Tenenbaums like when it hit HBO, but once again, I just didn't get it.
Yeah, totally.
Like
Sure.
I maybe that sounds makes me sound like a little bit of an ignoramus or something, but like it just kind of went over my head with how subtle things are done and whatnot in those movies. And
it's very oddball. It's oddball. It's quirky. It's niche. It's super niche and pedantic. Like you have to be in. It really is for like intellectuals. You know what I mean? As like pretentious as that sounds, like it's very self-aware. You know what I mean? Like it, and either you go with it or you don't. And that's okay if someone isn't into it. You know what I mean?
Do you think the new one's gonna be good? Do you think, I mean, like, are all of his the same kind of good, or like do they have like leveling degrees of good? And where do you think this new one's gonna land?
Now it almost looks like he's parodying him. That's a hard one.
Like he's trying to make.
He's parodying him. So, yeah, it's almost become meta. Like he's just gonna disappear up his own asshole into himself and start making parodies of parodies. It's gonna be weird. I'm not sure what that dude's gonna do, but I'm gonna go see it. Like I'll go see anything puts out just because I'm amused by it. French Connection was the last one. I haven't seen it. Steve Carell there. I didn't know he was in this one other than, oh, that's right, he was in the trailer. But French Dispatch was very like for writers. I would say like if you're not a writer, I don't know why you would like it as much unless you just like Wes Anderson. But there are varying degrees of Wes Anderson. Look at that. Those are all so good. Anyway, we're talking about things that are up on a screen. So, I am looking forward to Wes Anderson. I don't really have an answer to your question, to be honest with you.
Okay, you're looking forward to it. That's the answer. I mean, that's great.
What are you looking forward to about Scorsese's new movie?
Honestly, man, I didn't really know I was a Scorsese fan until recently. You know what I mean? You see his movies and stuff like that, and they just kind of go into the back of my head of like, that was a great movie and stuff like that. And I'm not really thinking about the director. I'm just thinking about like how great of a movie that was. And then when I started sitting down and looking at like his like movies and how much I really like them, like The Departed, even though that's a remake and I love the original from I want to say that was China. I think it was called Infernal Affairs is what the original title is. I really do like the original, but what he did with that American one with the Irish cops and putting in a bar, I thought that was totally amazing. And then Gangs of New York just blows my mind and whatnot. And it just like, he's got so many like great things. And I'm always like, oh yeah, Scorsese's like this old dude. And then I watch his movies. I'm like, this motherfucker is violent. And I love his violence and stuff like that. Casino, Goodfellas and shit like that, like old school kind of gangster movies that I really fell in love with as a child when I shouldn't have been seeing stuff like that. I don't know. Just I don't think I've ever looked forward to one of his movies. And now that I'm mature and have like all of this filmography behind me, it's like, I could really go see like a very adult violent film. You know what I mean? Like I could really sit down and watch something and it's based on some true stories. Great acting legends are going to be in this one as well. The trailer didn't necessarily do it for me. Like, it's a lot of slow motion and imagery and just some like talking and stuff. But I think the mysticism and not showing everything in the trailer has also got me intrigued. At the same time, there's a lot of trailers nowadays that literally like edit the trailer in sequential order. So all you're doing is missing like what gets them from this sequence to this sequence. And then when you watch the movie, it's like, oh man, I already saw this entire movie in the trailer.
Yep.
So I'm just intrigued. I'm very intrigued. I don't know much about these Osage murders that it's based on. So it's a story that I'm not familiar with and everything. So I don't know. I'm excited to see something different. It's not a Marvel movie. It's not a new IP. It's not a sequel. It's just going to be raw. It's going to be real. It's probably going to be really gritty and violent. And I'm excited for that.
I'm excited for, speaking of another pretty iconic filmmaker in his own right, is Christopher Nolan. And his summer blockbuster this year is Oppenheimer.
Right. I did see the trailer for that. You didn't watch it, though.
No, I started watching it and then I turned it off because I thought, why am I watching this trailer? I'm gonna go see that. I'm gonna go see this movie. Like, why ruin any of the imagery? No. I'll see it on IMAX. Like, I don't even need to watch this. What am I doing? So I'm super excited. Is that coming out this summer? Wait,
I think it is. Yeah. Cillian Murphy looks like he's going to be the star of it, which I'm very excited. I like that actor a lot. Obviously, he's not a stranger to working with Nolan. How many movies has he done with him now?
Several.
4?
But I remember the first thing, and we mentioned it last episode. Danny Boyle, we were talking about Danny Boyle at the beach, and Cillian Murphy. The first thing I remember seeing Cillian Murphy in was 28 Days Later, and he's the guy who wakes up in the hospital, the empty hospital, and we follow him along. I
love 28 Days, man. We're gonna have to talk about some zombie movies one day because 28 Days, even 28 Weeks, I think are very good films.
I didn't see Weeks, but Oppenheimer is. Okay. Oppenheimer is coming out July 21st, so that's something I'm super. Summer. And I heard that they created, like, I've been kind of avoiding the scuttlebutt just because I want to see the movie first, and then I'll delve into all the lore. But I heard that they built basically it's conventional, it's non-nuclear, but a big ass bomb to detonate on camera. So that, using IMAX cameras, of course, because Christopher Nolan, that sort of thing, so that they could, accurately recreate what that looked like, what the atomic explosion looked like, just using conventional, detonative devices. Awesome. But made a big
to do something big and practical in his movies. I know that. So. And I got to applaud that. I love that. I miss that. I hate when they're like, we'll just get it in post. We'll just have some dude in, some other lab somewhere make this, vision come to life. When it's like, no, I'm the director. This is the way I see it. And the best way to capture it is with miniatures or with some real pyrotechnics. I love that more than just, we'll just get it in post.
Well, and this is a more traditional, summer blockbuster because they're putting all the resources to do it practically as much as possible and not just throwing, green screen and special effects at it like they want to do. And Christopher Nolan is, I feel, really good at putting together a summer blockbuster. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I love a lot of his movies, and some more than others for sure. But yeah, I definitely got some good memories, like going to see The Dark Knight in the theater, and it was so hot out, and we were all overwhelming the grid that we browned out, our grid at the movie theater and had to go back and see it again at a later date and stuff like that. It was
really
so hot. Yeah, it was hot. It was literally just like that episode in Entourage where it happened for the Aquaman release or whatever that he was doing.
Yeah. I remember that.
I was kind of dying laughing. I was like, man, I really wanted to see that movie, but this was an experience in itself. The fact that it was just so hot and everyone was running to the theater because it had the AC, and The Dark Knight was like the biggest thing coming out that summer. And it was just an epic time. And God, that feels very recent, but how many years ago was that now? It's a long time ago. But yeah, I definitely have some great memories of that. And speaking of which, summer blockbusters, that's the topic of the day, man. You want to dive right in? You want to talk about
Summer
The beginning of summer
blockbusters.
blockbusters and where that all came from.
Yeah,
With this
so
guy
there
right
we
here.
go. There is the man, Steven Spielberg, in the mouth of Bruce. Bruce is the name that they gave the shark in Jaws, the people who were actually making the movie. And Jaws was the first, what became summer blockbuster. And the way that happened was marketing. So before that, movies were what we would think of. Well, actually, they were released in a way that we wouldn't even, recognize anymore. But what would happen is they would pick like 4 or 5 cities, like New York, LA, maybe one other, Chicago, something like that, and then
Yeah.
a couple of theaters would get prints. But even then, there were only so many theaters. This was before multiplexes. And so, they actually got film prints, and it would slowly, depending on how well it did in those cities, would trickle out from there. And those prints would get like mailed further out in the sticks. And
Yep.
then if it did well, and it would just, that's how it kind of, trickled out into, the country, as it were, and the rest of the world. So what they decided to do with Jaws is carpet bomb as many theaters as possible all at once, because they had done test screenings, and the test screenings had gone really fucking well. And people were, hooting and hollering and, just having a blast, talking at the screen, jumping, clapping, laughing, all of those things that you want in like a communal, movie experience that just has studio executives just drooling on themselves. And it just scored so high, and they were like, okay, we think we've got a hit, and we're going to not even double down, we're going to triple, quadruple down on this, and we're going to get as many people into the theater at once as possible. Because it actually used to be that only bad movies got wider releases, because they were just trying to recoup as much money as
Recoup the
possible
money, yeah. It
before
wasn't 'cause
word
the
of
quality,
mouth.
they needed people
Yeah,
to see
because
it.
word of mouth was going to say, like, by the second weekend, everyone's going to know that movie sucked. So no one's going to go see it. So you're just trying to recoup as much as possible. So this was the first time that they actually had a hit. And instead of letting the word of mouth carry the movie for 9 months or whatever, which, would let it grow and make its money back, they were like, no, it's a great movie. Let's tell everyone about it. And so what used to be like The Godfather Part 2, which was a big release, like a year before, was opened in 5 theaters. Or like 5 cities, sort of thing. And Jaws was released in 400 theaters. And lines around the block, all that stuff. And it was the first summer blockbuster, and it became a thing to where, like, if you hadn't seen Jaws, something was wrong, because that's what everyone was talking about. And so that's what became a summer blockbuster. In the record time, it became the highest grossing movie of all time in like 74 days or something. Like, it was some ridiculous amount of time. It set tons of records.
And of course,
then they just thought,
that saved
okay,
Spielberg's career, right? Because he was like over budget and over days and da 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 da, and this whole
it was a
thing,
mess.
so.
There's a whole. I have a book about it here called The Jaws Log by Carl Gottlieb, who's the person who adapted the novel into the movie, and he was one of the big character actors in the movie, that sort of thing. He was hanging around Martha's Vineyard, because everyone was hanging around Martha's Vineyard, because they were just hanging around most of the time, because the shark didn't work ever. So everyone there was a lot of hanging out in Martha's Vineyard that summer, and so that's what the book is about. But it's also about the release and how it became this sort of, cultural phenomenon after that. And then Spielberg kept it up. He did the same thing with E.T. And actually, he used to trade blows with his buddy George Lucas when when Star Wars A New Hope came out, took the reins, and then Spielberg got it back with E.T., and then Lucas got it back again with,
I think it was Raiders with the Lost Ark.
But then they did that together, so it's a whole thing. But Jaws was the first movie that started what became a summer blockbuster. So, and I would say the summer blockbuster, if we remove Marvel from the equation, I would say the summer blockbuster peaked in the 90s. the summer blockbuster hit its stride and what
Yeah.
it was about
I
in
can
the
I can get on with that.
90s.
We've definitely had a lot, but you're right. Like it's been dominated by the superhero genre, mainly Marvel, but other companies as well. But the superhero genre for the last 13 plus
15,
years,
yeah,
yeah,
15 years.
something right there. So, but yeah. So, what are our most memorable summer blockbusters, man? I've got a little presentation here. Figure we go
Here we
down the list
go. Okay.
and take a look at it, man. And starting right here. Now, this one came from my list, but I know it was on both of our lists. I think the majority of these summer blockbusters were on both of our lists that we chose. But Independence Day, man, this has got summer blockbuster vibes written all over it from my memories, man. The commercials were hyped. Will Smith was big at the time, right? And then when this came out, everyone was talking about it. And it was like the number one movie at the theater for a couple of weekends in a row.
Yeah. Okay. So Independence Day is the definition of a Hollywood summer blockbuster.
Right.
It is the poster child. It like set the standard.
I know.
For even what Marvel did is because of like the template that was put forth by Independence Day. And there had been summer blockbusters, as we know, before that, but that was the one that took all summer blockbusters and I don't even know what's the best metaphor because it didn't like kick them out of the way, but it just took the idea
Blew the rest of them out of the water,
and put two turbochargers on it and a supercharger and took all the way and was like, this is a race car of a summer blockbuster. It was designed from the ground up to be a summer blockbuster. It wasn't just, this is our big movie that happens to come out in summer. It was, motherfuckers, we are going to,
blow the roof off of it.
Define what a summer blockbuster is with this movie. From point A to point B, from the marketing to the production, all of it. Casting, everything about this movie is designed to be marketed to a global audience. They wanted to get as many people as possible into the theater, and so it was designed to do that. And that's why you've got, you know, the ships that are over all the major cities all over. Like, it is a global, I mean, it takes place mostly in America because at that time, of course, that's going to be the biggest audience. It's an English speaking movie, but it's a global story. Roland Emmerich is not American, who directed it, and he, if anything, is the like prototypical summer blockbuster director, and he's
done
not
so many like this ever since.
That's what he does. 2020 whatever, Ice Age, you know, the Ice Age one,
the day after tomorrow or whatever,
day after yesterday, before tomorrow, last week. Like it, because of this, and it was this movie.
Because of this,
the movie he did before this was Stargate, which is actually a really good movie. Stargate's a fantastic movie, I think.
I don't think it holds up. I've watched it again recently, and I was like,
I haven't watched it in a while.
I like this one as a kid, and
okay, I'll have to rewatch it. I haven't watched it in a while. But anyway, so Independence Day is the fucking definite. It is the poster child. It's like, what is a summer blockbuster? That fucking movie. That's a summer blockbuster.
And then so is this next one right here. Now,
this one
to the list.
Yeah,
now,
so
this one's definitely not as bombastic as Independence Day, right? It wasn't hyped up that way. But when this one came out, everyone saw it. I remember this being such a big movie that summer. And of course, I love Apollo 13. I think it is a very underrated summer blockbuster, if that makes sense, right? It's not action, it's not blood, guts, gore, it's not IP based on a true story. But yeah, I love this movie. I love all the acting in it. The directing is just top notch as well.
Why don't you talk about it some more? So Apollo 13 it has heart. That's the thing. So Ron Howard, it can, you know, sometimes he can be, is it saccharin? Is that the way you pronounce that? It's a little too sweet. You know what I mean? He can, at times in his career, he can kind of dabble a little bit where it's a little too saccharin. But I feel like, okay, so Apollo 13 is the definition of Americana in cinema form. It is apple pie, but it is really, really good apple pie. But it follows a very established storytelling structure that is typified in Western civilization, defined by Hollywood. What we think of as Los Angeles and Hollywood is the epicenter.
Yeah.
And this movie hits every single note in the playbook along the way, but plays it well and in tune.
Yep.
Like, you're not surprised by any of the notes necessarily, but they're all played so well that you go with it. And the casting is fantastic. It's a human interest story with heart. It just triumph of the human spirit, all of that shit. Like, this is the movie that does that so well.
Right, man. This is the one that made it very famous, right? Houston, we have a problem, right?
Yes.
So that was this one. That was just from the trailer too. But damn, this was such a good movie and so well acted, so well put together. And of course, even right here, just showing the old trailer and how they figured out how to kind of do the 0G.
Oh my God, doing that in the plane. So they only got to shoot for how many seconds at a time? It was like
I don't even
20.
know.
I think it was like 20 seconds a take or something like that. Because they're just doing parabolas.
Yep.
That's all they're doing.
And so they had to make up the plane to look like the space shuttle. So they made it look like these props and stuff.
Pain in the ass. Cool. Shooting all of that just makes me, I'm like, oh my God, what a pain in the ass to shoot all of that.
They had a blast doing it, they said, and they got a little sick, and
Well, but they had a blast because it was
movie. Guys,
they had a
blast. Never seen Apollo 13. You're missing out. I own this one on Blu-ray. Looks really good and cleaned up on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I need to see that.
Yeah. So Apollo 13, another great summer blockbuster. What was next on the list here? This Mac Daddy of a movie, man. Jurassic Park. I love this movie. Still love this movie. I'm assuming I'm not the only one. This movie made millions of dollars at the theater, but I just remember this one dominating my summer. I saw this one 16 times in the theater. Did you only go see this one once, or?
No, I saw it several times. This was okay. So if Independence Day is the like poster child for spectacle and Apollo 13 is the poster child for heart, this is just the one for thrills.
Yeah.
This is the most thrilling summer blockbuster probably in American cinema.
Bingo.
It works on
DNA.
every level. It still holds up. It is, people of our generation, this is still like in our favorite movies of all time still.
Yeah.
It helps define Steven Spielberg's career. It became the highest grossing movie. Was it the highest? I know it was the highest of the year. I don't know if it was the highest of all. I think it took over. Anyway, I went and bought the book the next day. Still have that copy. This is one of my favorite movies. Jurassic Park it's definitive Spielberg. We'd never seen anything like that. And we talked about it before a bit, even with the effects on our first episode, just talking about how,
did talk about this,
like, it was the forefront of the revolution. And it was the kind of thing like this is spectacle, but in stuff that we really hadn't seen before. And it felt organic. Whereas like the spaceships and stuff in Independence Day were cool because they were big. And that's when things started just going for like scale. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we've just never seen anything that big before. They were just trying to make it look realistic at this point. So it wasn't about like huge wide shot. Well, there is a wide shot, but there was just like one huge wide shot. It isn't, like Jurassic World Dominion or whatever, where, let's have planets exploding and dinosaurs floating through space or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, because we've never seen it before. Whereas this was just trying to pull off. It's a survival movie. It's a movie about survival. And I think that's one of the great things in the theater. We were at the perfect age to go see this, where we knew we were watching a movie, but there was a preponderance of peril. Like, we did not know who was going to live and who was going to die in this situation, because he even says that, people are dying. will you
Yeah.
please turn off the system? Sort of thing. Like, that's the
Yeah.
point. You're like, fucking people are dying. Like, that meant something. You know what I
Jackson
mean?
died,
There
man.
were stakes. You talked about before, there are no stakes in Air. There are fucking stakes in
Stakes in this
Jurassic
one.
Park.
I
Yeah,
love
like
this original
intimate
one, man.
ones. Yes.
The cast in this one was so good. And of course, obviously, all the dinosaurs were amazing. And the fact that they were able to incorporate real life robotics, puppetry, and CG before CG was really good enough to be on screen. And the fact that I go back to this movie over and over again and I'm like, wow, this still really holds up to this day.
It totally plays.
It still looks
Totally
amazing
plays.
and keeps your attention, and it grips you and it takes you through. And I mean, what are they up to? 6 of those now? And I definitely have not enjoyed the sequels as much as this original movie.
Yeah,
this one just it hit all the great marks. It definitely had that darker edge to it, as where like the Lost World felt a little bit more like family friendly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what it is about the second one that makes
Does
me feel
anyone
like they were trying to sell more
really-
toys than they were trying to sell the story. But gosh, this first one, like I said, saw it so many times. Even had the chance to go see this one on a large IMAX screen, which was great. They had the 16 something subwoofers behind the screen, so when the T-Rex comes out, he's like really shaking the entire studio or the theater. It was great, man. So yeah,
love
Jurassic
that movie.
Park, without a doubt. Next on the list, though, was another one of yours and another Nolan movie, since we were just talking about him, but you added Inception to the list.
So I know a lot of people, like, we can get really pedantic about this movie and start getting into like the logic of the layers and where does it work and where does it not work. And I know there are lots of videos about that on YouTube, and some people have some like issues with, some of the basically logic of, the situation essentially. I am not one of those people. I don't give a shit about any of that.
I think it's fun.
I love this movie. So my wife and I, on our honeymoon, it came out this summer, we got married, and we did London and Rome on our honeymoon. And while we were in London, we went to it. This was, released that summer. We went to the Odeon Theater, which is in downtown London. It's kind of a big where
Sounds cool.
where the premieres are and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we went and saw Inception because I was a Nolan fan. Of course, it just looks like I'm totally going to go see that movie. And I left that theater vibrating like a tuning fork. Like,
nice.
It was like, this is why I go to see movies.
Yeah.
Like, it is a huge, big spectacle, super interesting work, layers and layers of ideas. I didn't want to sit there and like break apart each thread, and I just went with it. I don't care. This is a movie that I just go with. I have such fond memories. I have it on Blu-ray. I still put it on. Soundtrack's great. It all works for me. Like, super interesting.
Hey, man, you're
I love
preaching to
Inception.
the choir.
Yeah.
This movie just works for me as well. I'm with you. A lot of people try to break down logic, and it's like, fuck logic, dude. This movie is exactly what it is. It doesn't break its own rules. It creates the world where this is a reality and this can be happening. And you just kind of get on board with it. And I mean, once again, I had to throw on this fight sequence because this
Joseph Gordon-Levitt,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love watching the behind the scenes stuff about how they built that
right?
contraption that turns and everything. But that's Nolan. He wants to do it all practical, like with Oppenheimer, and stuff like that. So that's really cool. And I think Inception is just a really, and what's great about Inception too is because it came out in 2010 and it was still, I can't say even early on in the Marvel verse or whatever, but it wasn't, based on an IP. It was an original idea that he and his brother wrote.
Yeah.
And I really like that too, is that they gave him the budget to do something wild and extreme and original. And I really like that. And I wish we could, it's an example of what I would like to see more summer blockbusters be in a post Marvel Cineverse. You know what I mean? Like when we've,
And once again, like, I hope people listening don't get us wrong. Like, we do love Marvel movies, but when you're just constantly being dominated by one genre and one through line that Marvel's been creating, it is nice to see something fresh and different and that can captivate you. You know what I mean? And draw you in. I like having fun at the movies just like everybody else.
Oh, sure. And Marvel's fine, but historically, that's what we're going to look at this. It's defining the time period of cinema at this time in Western culture. And, that's okay. That's just what's going on. And this too shall pass. Like it comes in, and then 40 years from now, it'll come back and they'll do them all again with whatever technology. And that's fine. That whatever, like that's just the way it works. But it's like, okay, I'm ready for this like next tide to come in because like I'm just done.
Yeah.
I mean, shit just gets old after a while. Like you want something new, and
But that's
like,
why I'm excited for Oppenheimer, or like we were just talking about the new
Scorsese,
Scorsese, the Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, it's not summer. It's going to come out in like September, or October. But I want to see Fincher's new movie, The Killer, with Michael Fassbender.
Okay.
It's not being released as a blockbuster,
one.
but just as a, since we're talking about kind of auteur filmmakers, established filmmakers, Fincher is up there, and his movie, even though it's not a summer tentpole, but it's supposed to be, it's what happens when an assassin like gains a conscience, and like starts, like doubting. Essentially, that's the idea. So you're watching like an assassin fall apart psychologically, which sounds very Fincher, but like is still doing like slick murders as he's slowly losing his mind, sort of thing. I'm like, I'll totally watch that.
And
like that's Fassbender's great. Fincher. Anyway, so what's the next? Or Inception?
I don't know. I think we're almost to the end of our list. Is this it? Oh, I gave away the last one. That's okay. Right here, man. This one I got added to the list because I remember distinctly the hype. The hype was so real around the 1989 Tim Burton Batman movie. When I went and saw it at my little, I think it was a general cinema theater that we went to, that definitely wasn't even like the big Cinemarks and the big AMCs that they have now. And there was a dude in a Batman costume, and they had the spotlight there. They were making such a physical spectacle of this movie. So you were like, you knew you were walking in.
I'm going to see a Batman. Special. Yeah,
and
totally.
I mean, and it holds up. I still love this original Batman. I still love it.
Yeah,
and its sequel, even I debate.
I love Batman Returns. Sequel. I love Batman Returns. I think it's great.
I do too, and that came out in the summer as well. So I almost put that one on there, but
I think of it as a Christmas. I think of it as a Christmas movie more, but it's because of the time period. Sure, yeah. But I think I've always been a big fan of Batman Returns. I think it totally plays. It's underappreciated.
Well, I think Returns as much as we want,
but the original is fantastic.
This old one and my memories of it. I'm a little hyped and nostalgic of seeing him in this costume again for the new Flash movie that's coming out. Even though I'm not huge on what DC's doing right now.
Oh, I don't care. I remember. Do you remember? I remember.
That's pretty much what it is. But it is Michael Keaton doing his thing, and I love Michael Keaton, especially as Batman.
I would rather see him do Beetlejuice than Batman again.
Well, they are doing that. You know that, right? Beetlejuice 2 got greenlit. It's on its way.
Oh, they've been talking about it forever.
It's on its way, man. So that is happening. But yeah, this original Batman. I mean, once again, the toys. The hype, Warner Brothers was taking a huge...
and Nicholson was a big find for this. Getting him to say yes to this was a huge deal. And how do you not let him upstage a little bit, even the movie? You know what I mean? Like he could upstage the entire fucking movie because he's Jack Nicholson. And Timmy Burton did a good balance with the different things, and the production design's great. It's super dark. It's actually dark. Really it's not a happy movie. It's actually pretty
not necessarily no. But it's a good time.
It was one that I grew up with. I had it taped from TV sort of thing, so I watched it over and over and over again. It was, the VHS tape was threadbare.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, this one I absolutely loved. And I loved that my dad loved this movie. You know what I mean? This was a movie that
dads could watch. My dad probably liked it too. Yeah, because of Nicholson partly. I think Nicholson,
just because of him.
Yeah, Nicholson drew the adults
huge at the time. Yeah,
but he wasn't just huge at the time. He was a legend at that time. Yeah. So he had moved past huge. He had moved beyond that into a different. That's why they had gotten a legend to come and do this, and that was that was impressive. There he is.
Yeah, some good stuff.
Anyway, yeah, great. there's a lot to be said about that movie.
There
There's a lot to be
is,
said about
there
that
is. But
movie.
we've got one more movie on the list, and
Okay.
I think we've been down this rabbit hole for a long time now. But let's go ahead and show the audience.
Yeah, we'll
the
finish it
last
off
one.
here.
If I didn't already give it away, I went too far down the rabbit hole with the slideshow.
Okay,
But
so
here's the last one. You went ahead and added this one.
This movie absolutely racks me to my soul. So this came out in 1998.
Which one?
Saving Private Ryan.
There you go. For the
Oh, sorry. Yeah, yes. For everyone out there, my last pick was Saving Private Ryan. Okay, so this came out summer of 1998. I wasn't working at Blockbuster, but it was a video store. And after work one night, I went and saw this. I was the first R-rated movie I was able to see in the theater by myself. And because my birthday's in September, so I saw it at the end of summer. It wasn't even like in the heat of summer that I got to see it. And it was like on a Wednesday night. But in 1998, some of you will remember that in the late 90s, around that time, there was a big transition in theatrical showings, in that they moved away. They were old theater houses were refurbishing and upgrading their stereo systems and their projection systems, but also the big multiplexes were also being built with state-of-the-art stadium seating and new sound and new audio, because before that it had been like 20 years before a lot of these theaters had updated any of their technologies, so they were actually really dated. And so in the late 90s, when these theater companies started like, okay, well, it's time to update, and it became state-of-the-art, it was really state-of-the-art.
Yeah.
And so when I went and
THX
saw
remastering, right?
So Saving Private Ryan was the first R-rated movie I saw in the theater. I was the only one in the theater. It was like an 8 o'clock showing on a Wednesday night, like 4 months after it had been released. And it was one of the first stadiums. It might have been the first stadium seating movie that I saw in the theater. And it had brand new audio video. And this movie absolutely broke me in half. I guess World War II at that point, this was a movie that kind of brought World War II back into the popular consciousness, because about that time, like The Greatest Generation, World War II wasn't super popular. If anything, it was like in the 90s.
Thing I really remember about it was that they had it on that PBS docuseries, World War II in color.
Yeah, stuff like
that.
that
Was like the biggest thing I knew.
You
about
think of
it.
like your grandpa, like, oh, okay, granddad sort of thing. It wasn't a thing. And it was this movie because it brought to a screen the horrors of war. And suddenly watching that, it literally, my mind exploded going, oh my God, you guys did that sort of thing. And I love really, and not just them, but it just kind of opened up kind of my idea. And I really started learning more about, I mean, I always enjoyed history, but I really started learning more about history and, offshoots from the war. But it kind of started with, this is the movie that really put the bug of history in me, starting around the war and then going from there. But just the experience of seeing the theater was absolutely, it was shattering because it was so loud and so in your face. And I had never seen anything done like that before. Dude, and it absolutely broke.
Scene, right? This scene right here.
Oh my God.
Obviously it just captivates everything, and it draws you in, and it doesn't let go. It doesn't apologize, and it just throws it right in your face and stuff. I did see this in the theater with my dad, I think sooner than you did. And I just remember being blown away and captivated by what he had done with this story, and the acting, of course, is just top notch. There
we go. Another Tom Hanks. That's another Tom.
When I watch this, is oh my God, Vin Diesel's in this.
Oh yeah, that's right. I
always forget that every time I watch this movie.
And Paul Giamatti shows up. There's a couple little character people who show up throughout.
Nathan Fillion, really young Nathan Fillion.
That's right. And then of course Matt Damon at the very end, before everyone really knew who he was. Ed Burns, sure.
Giovanni Ribisi as well, doing a great
Oh,
performance.
Tom Sizemore, who just passed away. Tom Sizemore.
Yeah,
actually, that was when he was like deep in his troubles, and they were drug testing him every morning on set. He used to have to take a piss test every morning. And they said, if you ever fail, you're gone. So like sort of thing. So he was trying to like rehab his way through. Yeah, he got hit by the sniper. But anyway, Saving Private Ryan was a movie that just absolutely blew me away, and I think it totally stands up.
Once again, still holds up, still amazing to watch and whatnot. Well,
big summer blockbusters.
Woo, that was fun.
Yeah.
We just went down memory lane. I got to talk about some great nostalgia stuff. And of course, just keep me hyped about movies in general. I mean,
I know.
It's so fun that it's not something that we have to talk about from our past because it's in our past. Like there's still plenty of great stuff to look forward to this summer and whatnot. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to mention that I'm looking forward to the sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. Once again, I thought that the first one really reimagined animation and whatnot and took it to another level. And
you told me about it.
I can't wait to see what they do with the sequel.
Cool. Well, I'm excited for you for that because I know that you were such a big fan of the first one, and I will get around to it.
You should.
It's on the list. I will. On a side note, I saw a documentary got added to Netflix that I want to watch on a totally different thing about Katharine Hepburn. The actress Katharine Hepburn. I forget what it's called, but it just came out on Netflix. That's actually went to the top of my list. I want to watch that. Because I just recently rewatched The Aviator, Scorsese, sorry. Martin Scorsese's The Aviator with Leo. Did you see that one?
Never.
And
no.
You absolutely should. And Kate Blanchett plays Katharine Hepburn, which is probably I know Katharine Hepburn more from that than I do from her original movies, which I haven't studied a lot of. But I do want to see this documentary. Maybe that'll be my entrance into the history of Katharine Hepburn and that her.
Definitely let us know what you think about that.
Yeah,
I'm going to be seeing you next Sunday. Mm-hmm. And of course, thanks to everyone else for tuning into today's show. If you enjoyed what you heard, tune in every week for more, and please consider subscribing on whatever platform you are enjoying us on. Let us know in the comments below your favorite summer blockbuster that you would recommend to anyone out there that you just can't get enough of. And who knows, maybe with enough suggestions, we might do another episode about summer blockbusters. But we're going to see you right here next time on Back to the Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in.